Hi, welcome to Classes, Functions, and Control Flow. In this section, we're going to discuss Kotlin's versions of POJOs, which are called data classes. We're going to discuss visibility modifiers, such as private, public, etc. We'll talk about how Kotlin handles interfaces and inheritance. And we'll talk about a very special feature of Kotlin called null safety. We'll also discuss singletons, functions, default and named function arguments, and control flow. Also in this section, we're going to begin a stock tracking app, which basically means throughout this section, we'll be working on an application that allows you to track certain stocks, from POJOs to data classes. In this video, we're going to discuss POJOs, plain old Java objects, and we'll talk about the downside of POJOs and the upside of data classes. So the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to go into our project and we're going to create a new Java class. So we'll call this Java stock. Our Java stock will have a private string called name, and we'll have a double, which is the value. So now we need to create a constructor. So if we hold Command and press N, Android Studio can help us create a constructor. We'll select both of those and we'll click OK. So here we have our constructor. So let's say we want to have a situation where we want to have an empty constructor. So what we'll do is, again, we'll hold Command and press N, and this time we'll select none. So we have an empty one, and then we need getters and setters. So again, we can hold Command and press N and click on getters and setters, and we can select both of these, click OK. And here we have our getters, get name, get value, set value. And then of course on top of that, we need to override equals in hash code so that we can be able to compare stocks. So if we go through this wizard and we select name and value, you see it'll create an equals method and a hash code method for us. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and modify my min SDK value to be 19, sync, and that should take care of that. And finally, in our POJO, we want to override toString to give us a real value instead of just a hash code. So far we've created a Java object which is used to hold a string name and a double value for our stock. And as you can see, it took up 55 lines of code. Now this is very tedious, and the more members that we add, let's say we want to add whether it's trending up or down, whether you're able to buy it, there are a bunch of properties that we can add, and the more properties we add, the more getters and setters we need to add, the longer our equals method will be, the longer our toString method will be, and the longer our constructor will be. Now the big benefit of data classes in Kotlin is that you can do all of this with one line, and I'll show you how. So if we go back to our project here, we're going to create a new Kotlin file and we're going to call it stock. Let's call it Kotlin stock. Okay, so we're given an empty class here, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go class Kotlin stock, and we're going to make a constructor. We want to access it, so we'll have a value called name, which is a string, and we'll have a variable called value double. So far so good. Now we have our default constructor, and now we need to create toString. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead, public toString, override toString, sure, and then we can return Kotlin stock name equals plus name plus comma value equals plus value. And we can go ahead and create getters and setters as well. However, you don't need to do any of this. Just by deleting all of that and leaving this one line and adding in the prefix data class, Kotlin will go ahead and it will automatically create getters and setters for all your variables, for all the member variables, and it will create a toString method, and it'll override equals and hash code. So let's try this out. Let's create two objects here. So we'll create a JavaStock object, JavaStock equals JavaStock, and we'll call it JV, and we'll give it a value of 100. We'll then go ahead and create a Kotlin stock equals Kotlin stock. We'll call it KT, and we'll give it a value of 200. Now let's just double check what the toString methods of these do. So if we go into our activity main, we'll just give our text view here an ID. We'll call it text, and we can go ahead and remove the text of this. And what we'll want to do is find view by ID, set text JavaStock .toString. Now keep in mind that our JavaStock toString method is overridden, so this is what we're expecting to see. So let's go ahead and run that. And we'll run it on our Nexus 5 emulator that we have open here. And what we should expect to see is a printout of JavaStock with name equaling JV and value equaling 100. Okay, it's ready to go. And there we go. JavaStock name equals JV, value equals 100. Now if we go back and look at our Kotlin stock, remember we added data here. We don't have any other code to override toString. So if we take our Kotlin stock and we print out Kotlin stock.toString and we run that, go back to our emulator here, you'll see that it very nicely prints out Kotlin stock name equals KT and value equals 200. Again, this is without having to override those methods here. So now you see the benefits of having data classes over POJOs. Data classes in a sense are POJOs because they are Java objects that just hold properties and are modeling a real thing for you, but it's much less verbose, and we can even remove this empty line here so that we only have 2 lines of code as opposed to 55 lines of code.